Behind the Win: Mental Health, Burnout, and the Hidden Cost of iGaming Leadership.
Welcome to my esteemed panel guests. I wanted to get straight into the topic of well-being because it's becoming increasingly important and it's had increasing focus. So my first question, just coming down the line, is whose responsibility actually is it? Is it the individual? Is it the manager, the leader? Or is it the business's responsibility to set a well-being tone? Marvin, I'll start with you.
Morning, everyone. So, good morning. Yeah, I mean, good question. We work in the gaming industry, an exciting industry, speed, essence, resilience, and ultimate wins. But behind every win, there's a hidden cost, and that hidden cost is normally borne by the leaders, which means, for my opinion, that it's more of an individual perspective, in the sense that that is the ultimate responsibility. We need to be, first and foremost, us responsible. We need to set boundaries, because if we cannot set boundaries ourselves, how can we set boundaries for the rest of the companies? So that's my perspective, the individual.
Brilliant, thank you. Tatiana?
Hi, good morning, first of all, everybody. Yes, I totally agree with Marvin's point that it is the individual who is ultimately responsible, but I would take it to a little bit of a metaphor. It's like you ask, who is responsible of littering in the street? Is it the individual? Yes, of course, the action is on the individual, but it is the responsibility ultimately also of the context and the environment, which are the rules, which are the culture, which makes it should make it almost unnatural to want to litter in the street. So in that perspective, it is the company and then ultimately the manager, who is the face of the company, who I would say is responsible to set up the rules which will support the environment and the culture in which you don't want to do things which are not stimulating you or not working towards you.
Brilliant.
So this is why I think it is both, and they should work together, the individual and the company.
Excellent. Annalie? Jamie?
Now I feel bad, I'm skipping here, but we can go back to
No,
Annalie
I'll definitely
afterwards.
come back.
So hi everyone, I'm Jamie. I'm the founder and CEO of iGaming Academy. I mean, again, it's not a straightforward question, right? I think there's a joint responsibility which needs to be realized here. Declining mental health is not something that somebody's going to be wearing on their sleeve. So, I feel that nowadays it is become far more of an issue than it used to be, in the sense that there's a lot more isolation, especially with work, with remote working. People are far more isolated, and without that element of togetherness, and then again, I'm not fully opposed to remote working, but without an element of togetherness within an organization, it's hard to build that strong mental relationship with employees, probably like we did pre-COVID.
Yep. Annalie?
When it comes to responsibility, in my opinion, it comes from above to start with. So leadership has to set the bar for how we communicate within the organization, and who should be able to say, I am overworked, I need help, unless the leadership allows you to and makes an open door culture where you can actually formalize this kind of sentiment that you are really feeling unwell. I think also on leadership level, it is more common that you get more burnt out because it's a higher stigma with admitting that you have a problem. So I think we need to resonate throughout the iGaming culture and any culture that we need help, and we need to be able to open the doors, speak with each other, and support each other, rather than condemning people who feel that they're unable to perform at the moment.
Makes sense. Thanks. And Abigail?
I believe everyone has their own responsibility in it, as in the company where, the management builds the culture itself, the managers who will be the example for everyone and also hold the space for all their team, but then also from the individual, it has to come within the alignment and contributing, be open and everything. So I wouldn't say it's an individual or one person's responsibility, but it just all makes it together.
Brilliant, thank you. Anna-Lee, I just wanted to circle back a little bit on what you were talking about in regards to the pressure on leadership there. There's fundamentally a difference between being pressurized, which is every leadership role, and then feeling that overwhelmed level of stress. So what can the leaders of those leaders do to create that open door kind of let's have a conversation about there's just too much going on?
So there are plenty organizations that offer support to leaders. Leaders may grow from, say, from the bottom and up, might not have the education to be a leader to start with. It's important to take the opportunity to learn how to manage other people and how to manage your own boundaries. And there really are organizations who provide this, for example, Richmond Foundation here, but there are lots of online organizations available and lots of help, self-help as well. So the important thing is to reach out to hand yourself and get the support from the organization to grow and to support each other, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And I think one of the things that I've noticed is the devaluing of even those one-to-one catch-ups. One-to-ones are becoming very operationally focused, and we're not touching base with how are you and how are you feeling. So those kind of things that we can bring back would open the door to have that opening as well. Abigail, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, well, my thoughts from my own experience with the team I run at CMC Consulting, it would be that, before I ever start each meeting, I scan the room, I scan my people as well. If I see something go off, I just speak with them individually, because setting the space and, having the presence, it's all about it. I'm not one who likes to organize discussions as just to speak about that topic, but more likely hold the space for everyone to be open and come with it themselves.
Brilliant. Tatiana, just following on from something Jamie said, because he brought in remote working is fundamentally changing the way that we're working in regards to having those touch points and really connecting with people. Do you think remote working is actually leading to a greater sense of burnout and a greater sense of disconnection?
Yes, it's a very good question, and I could probably talk about it because I would consider myself as a veteran of remote working. I started working remote 15 plus years ago, way before COVID. I probably shouldn't have said 15 plus, right? I should stop saying it. So yes, I have seen remote working in different uptakes and in different setups. And I think the key here is not what is in itself remote working, but whether this is the culture, whether this is the setup that will help you peak or not. It could, to some people, be a burnout environment, and it could be to others be a driving environment. And I think the real question here is, what do we do when the individual is not able to define whether this is an environment where they thrive in? What do we do? As recruitment, as TA, as leaders, how can we spot, first of all, in the very first phase of hiring, how can we spot that this very person has red flags and they will not thrive in this environment? What do we do as talent acquisition and etc.? We are lucky when individuals are able to self-reflect, and then we have this honest and open conversation and we say, yes, that is not the culture where you should be in. But if you are, I'd say, to talk about the environment of remote work, I think if you are comfortable with less of isolation, if you are comfortable with strong processes and following processes really well, and if you're okay, you know how to demonstrate your strong skills without socializing and, so to say, water cooler conversations, then you'll thrive. And then it's up to us to define whether these are individuals meant for it or not as leaders.
I think one of the things, it's not just about remote working. I mean, we're working across the globe now, so we have 24/7 operations, really. We have teams in different countries, individuals in different countries, different time zones that we are responsible for as leaders, and that can almost create that kind of always-on kind of mentality as a leader. But taking back with Jamie's point about the connectivity and having those connections, if we are global, we are 24/7, we have a mixture of remote working and hybrid working, what kind of things, Jamie, do you think we can do to have those touch points so that we're touching base on well-being and mental health?
Okay, so in our case, we went on a bit of a journey, right? You know, naturally, like many organizations, we went remote first. And then we sort of eased back into more of a mixed setup. You know, I think there is an element of not properly regulating workload. And I think teams and individuals are far more eager to say yes to work than to say no. So it's not just about communication. It's not just about being able to continuously have a dialogue with teams, but there needs to be some kind of activity between those teams, right? There needs to be, like we keep saying, togetherness. Absolutely, teams are international, offices are everywhere, but it's not one person per office. So there is a togetherness. It doesn't mean you need to be the whole organization, but parts of the organization would continuously be together, right? And I think that fundamentally for me and my ethos on business is that having that face-to-face environment, be it in a short form or long form, is extremely fundamental for the individual support. It's extremely fundamental for the business continuity. And it's also for from the employees' level of loyalty. Yep. I think that the level of loyalty is changed a lot. Their commitment to the organization. There's ways of resolving this. Having an organization which is far more open and far more inclusive in terms of how much they involve their teams, be it from entry level all the way up to senior management. The teams need to be a part of the journey. They need to be a part of the mission, the goals. And many companies do not disclose a lot of that information. If there's a certain financial target or if there's certain milestones that the organization needs to hit, then I think it's fair to give that visibility to the teams. Okay. And obviously there's a challenge there as well, because if you do not hit those milestones, if the organization is under-delivering, then you are exposing that to your teams, and it could very well be there's a bit of uncertainty that the business may not perform in certain months, it may perform much later, but you have to expose that to the organization.
Yeah, that makes sense. Marvin, just coming back to you, obviously this well-being and mental health really needs to start at the top and be a lead by example kind of approach. Do you actually believe though that it's okay for a leader to say, I am overworked, I can't take any more on, or I just can't do that, or even as Jamie says, I'm not going to be able to hit that target? Because I think this industry is very much fast-paced and it's very much target-driven. We have to grow, we have to grow. So how easy would it be to say, I am overworked, I can't do that?
Yeah, I mean, we're all humans. It's everybody has its ups and downs. No one is above mental health. It's something which keeps on coming up a lot. So yeah, I mean, the idea is what I would always like to push the narrative that we cannot always have a one-size-fits-all. So what is a burnout for somebody or a mental health issue for someone else is not the same for some other people or other, even different generations, different cultures. I mean, we're a company which we have more than 8 offices, and you can see it spread out throughout Europe and outside of Europe. Different cultures, different impact of what is mental health and what is not. Going back to your question, it's also it's a very personal experience. So you need to as well to start from there. And people handle it differently. Yes, you need to make your immediate colleagues aware of this, but also, I always say you have to push a bit yourself to make things happen. So when everybody needs to have his or her own exit, his or her own valve, be it something outside of work, be it sometimes within work, the idea is to have this yin-yang experience, So what is driving you? The mental breakdown, the mental burnout, and how can I handle this properly without, as much as possible, dragging the rest of the company down? And this is something which is, paramount. It is something which we need as leaders, we need to put more focus on it as well. It keeps as Jamie said, it keeps on increasing and becoming more vocal. But again, no one is immune to it, and we need to first and foremost be honest with ourselves and with our immediate colleagues to tackle it in the best way possible. But again, no size fits all. Yeah?
No, it makes sense. And Annalie, I just want to come back to you because this leads on with what you were saying earlier, I mean, fundamentally, there might be a fear that if I admit defeat as a leader, like it's just too much, I'm at burnout, I can't take any more, I can't hit the metrics, that there might be a cutthroat effect of, well, you're not good enough to do the job, let them go, we'll hire somebody who can. So do you think there's something that we can do in regards to the organizations? Why should they take this seriously? Why should we eliminate that fear culture of admitting that it might be too much for me?
First and foremostly, I think we need to acknowledge that there has been a great shift over the last 10 years, and even more so from the outbreak of the pandemic, that we have actually looked at our mental health, the effects of work and overworking, not setting boundaries. It has now actually changed a lot, and it is allowed to say this is too much for me. We have the switch off policy in many organizations, and I think it's imperative for us to have this, the boundaries set. When it comes to admitting that you have a problem, if you don't admit, you will crash and burn. So we need to actually bring this up to the surface properly and say, I can't, I need help. Stretching out your hand to ask for help means you have to have someone there who is willing to stretch their hand out and give help. So we need to make sure that we have the foundation set throughout the organizations to give help to people who need help. And if I can just give a little know-how from recruitment, I've seen a huge difference from 10 years ago. If somebody has a gap in their CV, I will get questions like, oh, was she pregnant? Or had a baby, or whatever. And people would say, oh no, I traveled the world, and they couldn't actually say what happened. Now people say, do you know what, I needed a break. And you can say it, the pandemic gave you an opening to say, I was too locked in, I didn't meet people, I needed a break, I needed to go back to visit my family. I understood what's important for me is not just work, but also the balance of where I can connect with my friends and family. If I live in a country like Malta, a lot of people couldn't leave. And for them, it became a mental breakdown that they could not meet and hug their families. They didn't know if somebody was going to survive. I think this opened up the conversation for what is important. And I can say it is important for me to have a hug from someone I care about. And from there, to spread this throughout the organization and say, we need to be humans, first and foremost, and we need to support each other.
Yeah. And I think one of those things professionally, that hand coming back, I mean, regardless of the supporting organizations, but actually in the business, a lot of the times we're putting a lot of emphasis that should be HR, but it doesn't have to always be HR within the business. It's just somebody in the organization that's going to grab that hand and have that conversation with you. Abigail, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, my thoughts realistically are the same as there as well. It is very important for all the leaders to also admit and have their own self-awareness within their own burnouts and, overwork. Because realistically, if you cannot say it to your team, how are you expecting the team to come to you?
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
That would be my thought about it.
And Jamie?
Yes, just to, we're like 60% through this conversation, and it's, we're not really even addressing the elephant in the room, which is a consideration to the industry that we're actually in, right? We talk about the individual, we talk about the stress levels, we talk about workloads, but there also needs to be a consideration to the health and the overall type of business that we're running, right? The mental health consideration and concerns on the other side of the pond are far greater than what we're dealing with internally within our organizations. That's something that needs to be acknowledged, okay? Because I think maybe many individuals would live more within a bubble, within their own organization, and not really consider what's going on the player side. But yeah, on the other side, I think that it has to be a collective approach. That's my main consideration.
Yeah. Marvin, I think we did touch on kind of having those timeouts and having those respites. But I mean, typically I work with clients all the time in this industry where even if they take a 2-week annual leave, they've got their laptop with them, they've got their phone on. There's just not that ability to reset the balance. So what can happen in those environments? What could we do more?
Listening also to my fellow panelists, I mean, I would like to take a bit of a different tangent here and as well understand that our reaction, most companies' reaction, and you can see it already in some companies, like in some countries like Germany, for example, or France, they are going a bit on the other side, where they're setting boundaries. You can only send emails between 9 and 5 because of mental health and burnout and everything, which for me makes sense, it does make sense, it does fit. But however, pay attention as well, not to go too extreme, because with the advent of remote working, different time zones, you are starting to box people now. And this will lead to more mental burnout, if it's not managed properly. Case in point, last month I was on holidays, met a good friend of mine. he works for a German company. He is being boxed in, not able to interact with his colleagues after 5 o'clock. However, he works remotely, he has a young family, he takes the kids to school in the morning. I do it as well myself here. I mean, we were talking earlier, you know. I go to the office late in the morning because I don't want to get stuck in traffic, in the Maltese traffic. Everybody hates to get traffic. So what do? You go late to the office. But then don't box me that I have to limit myself to 5 o'clock, because that, for me, will increase more stress. I cannot go for my run in the morning, I cannot do other stuff with my family, etc. So we have to pay attention here, not to go the other extreme, because it might invariably create more harm than good. And that is something which I would wanted to raise up here as well, because I feel that this is coming, the new wave of trying to
structure and
deal with
process.
this. So
Yeah.
we need to pay a bit of attention, think a bit.
And how do you think the balance would be achieved? Because you are completely right, is in order to police it, like what Tatiana was saying at the very beginning, to make sure that the well-being techniques and processes and support mechanisms we're putting in place are actually happening, but that policing could be ultimately having a detrimental effect. So what is the balance? I mean,
It's a difficult question. There's no, I always keep on repeating, there's no one size. Everybody's individual, has its own challenges, ups and downs. So I say always, listen, first and foremost, open door, keep it clean, but then don't go start and imposing, because again, different cultures, different generations, all are dealing different issues. So again, stay away from one size fits all, to try and be as much as more flexible. Even the fact that a lot of people, a lot of employees are working remotely, and a lot of companies have as well a good number of contractors nowadays, which brings all the different perspective. And also the fact also that I still feel that we have not done a good job, for example, in shifting from the mindset of managing people at the office to managing people in different time zones, in different offices, etc. This is something which we focus a lot, for example, at Logic Future, on helping our line managers, middle management, to ensure that it doesn't mean that if your near colleague, you can see him, etc., can deal the same way with somebody who is in Argentina.
yes, very much
So
so. I mean,
stay
it's-
away from that,
There's so many nuances. You've got the cultural nuances, but you've also got, there's a fundamental difference between managing and leading remote workers, and there's also a fundamental difference between leading and managing hybrid workers. So it's about how we're equipping the managers and leaders to tap into that skill set, because typically the people mentoring them are the people that come from my generation, where we only ever had office working. So how do you think we can get the balance, Tatiana? Because it's something you mentioned about having that kind of infrastructure in place to make sure what we're setting is getting done. So what is the balance for you?
Yes, I think it's very important. The context is very important. And I think what we touched on earlier, when do you switch off? We mentioned switching off. Do we really switch off, and do our employees switch off when their Slack notifications are off, or not really? Do they really switch off when they have their phone away? Not really, because they could still emotionally not be switched off, because they keep on thinking about and overthinking about what's is unfinished, or didn't work out well, or they didn't receive a good feedback, etc., etc. So I think we should think first and foremost, what is it that will allow our employees and ourselves as leaders as well, what will allow us to switch really off? In my opinion, I mean, it could be different for everybody. Like Marvin said, it's all individual. Probably there could be key points which we should stand by, which are, if you have acknowledgement of what you do, and you've done really well or not so well, and how to make it better. So feedback, that will set your mind at rest. How do you chill in the fact that you know that while you're away and you're off, your things will keep on moving? Because your team will have critical thinking, they will have empowerment to decision making. We all know empowerment is important. So if you are sure that your colleagues, your peers, your team are okay to make those decisions, they're empowered to make those decisions, you can obviously relax more. If you have processes which are good and secure and solid, and they will keep on working even when you are sick or off or whatever, that's when you can really relax. So I think it's not about switching off Slack or not switching off Slack. I think it's about creating the processes and atmosphere and environment which will allow us to make the conclusion that yes, I have acknowledgement, so feedback, trust, empowerment, and that will lead us to really be able to chill better and we say, yes, I rested in this week as opposed to I was overthinking.
Makes
That's what
sense.
So just to add to Tatiana, and this may not be the most popular opinion, right? But if I could do a 7-day week, if everyone in my organization could do a 7-day week, and I can see some of them smiling, I'll be more than happy to do that.
Me too, yeah.
But it needs to be the choice of the employee.
Yes.
Okay. I think the pressures and things that lead to burnout is how the pressure is being put on.
Yes.
You know, if the teams are on a vacation, not together obviously, because we don't allow them to go on vacation together. But if they are on leave and they're willing to give a reply, we're not asking them maybe, to give a whole proposal or put a lot of work down. But if there's questions being asked, if there's something that needs to be sent, and it's then communicated to the teams, then it's entirely up to them to do that. And I think if there's a safe culture of it's okay to not reply, or it's okay if you want to get that work done, then I think that's giving them the choice.
Makes sense. Just being conscious of the audience and the time as well is just, do you have one bit of advice that the people in the audience or the organizations could do to just help the well? Start with you, Abigail.
Yeah, so from my side, I believe I agree as well with Jamie, and it also takes on the emotional intelligence of the individual. There could be several different problems happening in one time, but we should always have the detachment to detach from the problem or any stress that's happening, and go with it from there as well.
Makes
because
sense.
again, I can work 7 days a week, but then again, it's the detachment from the situation, stepping in and out at it.
Makes sense. Annalie, what's one thing that you think that the organizations or the leaders could change to promote well-being?
I think recognizing that the industry has a very high number of risk takers, entrepreneurs, people who work with startups, and the mentality of people who start this company is different from somebody who just goes to work in a normal 9-to-5 job.
Yep.
So I think we need to recognize that the mentality of a lot of people in iGaming is different from the average. And we need to take help from experts to find out how to deal with different letter combinations, if so to speak, and they're individual per person. So we need to think of individualism, I think.
Makes sense, makes sense. Marvin?
I agree. Most of yes, there's this startup, but we also have to recognize a bit that we're also a mature industry now, yeah? A lot of people coming in outside the industry, joining the industry. Look at Sigma.
Yeah.
15 years ago, totally different, So I would say there's a bit more need for push for sustainable decisions, policies, and procedures in what we do. So we don't just do it for the sake of doing it, but more well taught to have it more in a sustainable way, help companies grow, but also help our employees, our dependents, etc., and grow with us, and as much as possible, support them in times of need.
Brilliant. Tatiana?
I would say that we could look also at it from a perspective of developing people. Because we talk a lot about, potentials, high potentials, what do you recognize in people when you want to grow them, and we always look at skills, traits, experience, and we all know aspiration. Now, what is that aspiration and what it's built of? That is usually the grayest area for managers to decide who are high potentials or not. And how do you define the person has aspiration or not? Well, it's very difficult. And I think what will help us really in that context of what we're talking about today is to say we need to look at where the person is with their well-being and what can help them peak in the context we are in with their way of being well and peaking, and with their way of getting burned out. And that will help us, A, to recognize those who need support or not, and B, how can we help them peak and get to their aspirations level high.
Brilliant.
And that will be different to different roles.
Yep.
That will be very different from creative roles to IT roles. The well-being setup will be different.
Brilliant. And Jamie, final thoughts on what could we do to improve well-being? What's your one idea?
Again, echoing what we've already discussed, it depends on the person, it depends on the person's experience, it depends on, which generation they're coming from. Because I can tell you, we can all do it a lesson in understanding a new generation coming into play, because they are complicated.
Yep.
In a very positive way, of course. So yeah, I think, again, balance, support, give the choice to the employee. But at the end of the day, it's a job,
Yep.
you know. And I think if we're too sensitive around that, it can do more bad than good.
Makes
you
sense.
know, when I started my career, when I started working with online businesses, it was far more cutthroat. You know, it was an employee's market, and now it's it was an employer's market, and now it's an employee's market. So, you know, you have to see how to navigate that.
Yep. No, I think one of the key messages is just understanding that everyone is a unique individual and how do we support that individual. Thank you very much to my panel. I hope you found it very useful. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you.